Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting of the January 16th, 2019 Wareham Conservation Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Okay, members present, Alyssa Hurd, Mary Taggart, myself, Kenneth Baptiste, Chair Sandy Slavin, Jim Smith, Rob Lesson, and the agent, David Pichette.
Thank you. For the audience, we will only talk about Conservation Commission topics at the hearing. If you go off topic, I will ask you to hold your comments because they're not appropriate to our meetings. And the meeting is being recorded, just to let you know. All right, we have minutes to approve from September 5th, 2018. Everybody was here. Everybody had a chance to look at them.
Motion to approve?
I have a motion to approve the minutes of September 5th.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Approved. I will sign. Okay. Mr. Bichette for the office.
Thank you.
Okay. Continued hearings. We have a Kate Benton. Anybody here for that particular hearing?
I happen to actually be Kate Benton, but, oh, good.
I think you've been representative. So please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
Brian Grady with GAF Engineering here for the applicant.
Thank you. Mr. Pichette will read the project.
So this project site is at 85 Towhee Road, and this application is for the approval of wetland resource area boundaries at this property. The request is to approve delineations of the coastal bank and also the edge of the salt marsh on this lot. The wetland boundaries were reviewed and they are accurate. At the last meeting, we had continued this hearing because we did not have a DEP file number for this application. We have since received that, so I would recommend the issuance of the order of resource area delineation approving the boundaries as shown on the plan, dated January 2nd, 2019.
Brad, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Any questions from the board? None? No?
Nope.
No? Anybody in the audience wish to speak for or against this project? Seeing none,
Motion to approve?
I have a second. I have a motion to adjourn.
Close.
Approve.
Close. You need a motion.
You got to close. Yes, I have a motion to close. I have a second. All in
okay.
favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
No? Motion
No.
to approve.
Yes, I have a motion to approve. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? I guess you got your delineation.
Thank you.
The next hearing is from, they have requested a continuation until February 6th. I need a motion to approve to continue until.
So move.
I have a motion to continue until
Second.
February 6th.
Second.
I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Continued until the 6th. Our hearings start at 7:15. We cannot start them earlier, so if there's anything else in the agenda we'd like to deal with. Mr. Bichette, you want to bring up Kenneth Keegan?
He's here, so.
Kenny, would you like to come up for us?
Hi everyone, I'm here again, messing everything up.
This is an enforcement order, and Mr. Pichette will speak to it. Oh, for your record, please, your name.
Oh, Kenneth Keegan, owner, 35 East Boulevard.
Thank you.
So this project site is the site over at 35 East Boulevard, where we've issued an order of conditions for a seawall reconstruction. This was after an initial violation where the stone was dumped there and whatnot. Mr. Keegan did come in and got an order of conditions for the reconstruction of the seawall and some other work that was approved at the site. Very recently, it was found out that some additional foundation work was being done at the house with no building permit and no approval from the commission. So I went down there, spoke to the people working, and put a cease and desist on it, and asked Mr. Keegan to come in through this enforcement order tonight to explain what the circumstance is and why this work was going on with no approvals. So that is why he's here tonight, to try to address that.
All right, let us know what you've been doing.
So the plan that you guys have is the plan that you guys approved through, I mean, I'm sure recent memory, you guys all remember the the Bracken plan. When I purchased the property from Leonard Cabellis, our Onset Redevelopment Group, he previously had, I want to say, if my memory serves me right, you'd have to see the date, but I want to say it was August 2016. The plan you're looking at of replacing the pilings underneath the house that are failing, that he had previously approved. He replaced some and didn't do some. I started wondering why my window exploded, my front one. So my father-in-law's a contractor. He came over and he went on their house. He's like, well, your supports fell over. I'm like, oh, well, I actually have the plan. I think we have a permit for it. I'm like, I grabbed it, I looked at it, I said, oh, and I followed the spec, and I started digging, and I started putting in the footings. I wouldn't be here today if that wasn't wrong. So I know that it expires after 3 years. I did do that research. I didn't do enough research to understand that I guess it's not transferable, I'm assuming. But nothing has been done out of the scope of that plan. I did stop on, when you stopped, I think it was Monday when you came by, or I don't know, I'm just working a lot lately. But I don't know what today is, but that's it. I mean, I followed the plan to the T. It's just there's some really old supports there, and but that's.
So in terms of getting building permits and whatnot, you did need to get a building permit for that.
I'm just ignorant on that. I didn't know. Now I know. As soon as you said it, I kind of lit a light bulb. I didn't realize that. I thought I have no good excuse.
And even for the footing work, they had come in and done a certain amount of the footing work. In terms of the approval that was issued, they did what was approved. So, if they were going to do more, they would have done it all. They wouldn't have done just
Well, I
half of
thought
it.
that. I called Len, and I said, why'd you stop? And he said, well, I only did the ones that the building commissioner forced me to. He says, if I didn't do the ones in the middle, he's like, the house that wouldn't have passed inspection. He's like, I didn't want to do it. He says, sending somebody under there's 4 feet of clearance. You have to dig it by hand. He said, I'll be honest with you, I just didn't want to do it. He says, I figured, he's like, you bought it, it's your problem. I'm like, I get it. We'll become friends throughout the situation, owning it. And, I mean, you can imagine what it's like digging a little footing. I mean, I just digged, I threw it in, like I said, and I buried it back, and I haven't done anything but that. There's just sonotubes there. I mean, I'm assuming you saw it.
There's also some, structural work that was gonna have to take place and was sort of starting in terms of the floor joists and all that. So again, I think the first step is you're really gonna have to just get to the building inspector and say,
I
hey,
agree.
this is what I'm doing, I need to get this squared away properly, because you don't even know from their viewpoint if what you're doing is okay,
It's structural, you know,
you know?
I agree.
So before you go too far and then find out you have to redo it, it just doesn't make sense,
No,
plus. you're supposed to
I
have it
understand
done
though. I understand the whole thing. I'm not really fighting it. I guess it's my second time here being a dum-dum. So it's, you know, yeah. I really don't know what to say. Just,
So the work that has been done, you've dug how many holes?
it's not a very big house. They're spaced out 4 feet, and he
So
did
they've
the
all been
middle.
dug?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, there's, I think if I were to guess, 7, 8
And they've all been filled with cement?
cement, yeah. And then the native sand just pulled back down. We,
In a tube?
yes, in a cardboard tube. Yeah, exactly the way it says.
with
Seemed
you?
like there was more done than 7 to me. It looked like there was more like 12 or 15 down there. I mean, but,
I
didn't
really
stop-
don't know
I
off the
didn't
top of my
stop and
head. I
count them
don't know.
all, but
It's, I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, there's a good amount, and then there was already some that were done, obviously, but you can obviously see because there's no supports. I mean, some have supports, some don't. It's kind of ugly underneath that house. I mean, it's literally, it's falling. Like, it's almost like a boat ramp, you know?
How much of this work was approved for the previous owner? Sorry.
That whole plan, I believe. Oh, sorry.
see that? I want to just see if I'm looking at this.
Because you're saying that you felt it was approved for the previous owner, and they haven't done it, so you were just going to...
Well, they started it. Yeah, they started
They
it.
hadn't completed what you
No,
felt
and the
was-
order of conditions are still open. So I figured, okay, so, because I also messed up, I didn't get my pre-construction meeting, and then I had to do that. So then I actually pulled up I think it's called minutes, something, I don't know, it's online, and I read it, and then the order of conditions are still open. And then I asked Len, I said, well, why'd you stop? And he said, he was just honest with me.
So even
you know.
if the order of condition is still open, you do not have a building permit. That's another...
No,
part.
I don't know.
And, you know, I couldn't tell from looking at what was done, because all I could see was the tops, but did they put in Bigfoot footings in there?
Yes.
Because it didn't look that dug up to have that many.
Well, they're not terribly deep. I think they only go down 4 feet, including the Bigfoot, or 3 feet. So it's, the holes itself aren't very deep. It's just the hard part of the project is that you have 4 feet of headroom. And
Right, but each one of those has to have a pretty good-sized diameter hole. It's not just a 12-inch hole. You gotta
Right.
dig a good-sized hole to get
Right.
this thing. So, all right, well, that's gonna be something the building inspector's gonna have to
inspect.
and they may make you dig one up to show them what
Right.
it is. I mean,
Understandably, yeah.
so as far as this plan goes, obviously, I don't have that file in front of me to see if this is the approved plan, but if it is and the order's still open, then, you know, he's likely covered as far as the commission goes under an order, but I'd want to just verify that. But obviously, still needs the building permit and so forth.
Continue it, let him get his paperwork together.
Then I would like to hold off and have a discussion next meeting when you have what was previously permitted compared to what was done.
Let him research it.
Yeah, so this isn't a hearing, so there's no vote needed to continue, just we'll continue to keep you on the agenda for discussion at the next meeting when we can compare previous approved to.
Mhm.
Any questions from anybody on the board?
All right, I'll have to go see the building commissioner.
Yes,
I'll
Kenny,
bring-
thank you.
Thank you, guys, I appreciate it.
Put this back.
Oh, jeez.
Why don't we hang on to that?
You want to hold on to it, or,
Yeah, that way-
I have to come in to see you anyway, so.
Yeah, and I'll compare this to what we
Yeah.
have.
You already have this one. But, yeah, that's it. Thank you, everybody, Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
It's now 7:15, reading the first.
Reading the first, notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6, a public hearing will be held in room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, January 16th at 2019 at 7:15 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Robert and Mary Ellen Stone, 4 Lantern Lane, North Reading, Mass. 01864, to remove existing cottage and foundation and construct a new single-family dwelling and deck located on Assessor's Map 78/2, Lot 130, 12 Kennedy Street, West Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Anybody who would speak to this project, come forward and identify yourself, please. And do we have green cards?
We do.
You can give them to Mr. Pichette, please. Then just identify yourself when you get in front of the mic, so Mr. White can hear you.
Great, thank you. My name is Robert Stone. My wife and I own the property on 12 Kennedy Street.
Thank you. Mr. Pichette will read the project, then you'll have a chance to comment on it.
Great, thank you.
Yes, so again, the site is at 12 Kennedy Street in the Rose Point area, and the project involves the demolition of an existing dwelling and the reconstruction of a new dwelling along a coastal bank within the riverfront area of the Weewianick River and within a coastal flood zone. The existing dwelling is very near the top of the coastal bank at the site. The proposed house footprint would be significantly larger and would result in a new project within the 30-foot no-activity zone to the coastal bank. The 30-foot no-activity zone isn't really clearly shown on the plan that was submitted. I would recommend that if a new structure is proposed in the footprint shown, that it should be pushed back outside the 30-foot no-activity zone. Unless the applicant wishes just to utilize the existing footprint, then they could do so because that's an existing structure. Either project that would be done would require filing a notice of intent instead of this being considered under a request for determination. So I would recommend that the site plan be revised to accurately depict the wetland resource areas in the 30-foot no-activity zone, and that the commission should ultimately issue a positive determination, number 3 and number 5, that would require filing a notice of intent.
Thank you, Robert. Your turn.
Sure. Thank you for having us here. Just a little history on the property. I inherited the house from my father. My grandfather and my father built the property in 1945, and as you know, back then you could kind of look off the ground and say, "Oh yeah, here's a good place to build." You didn't really have any restrictions on where you could build things. We've been speaking with Mr. Pichette for, I don't know, sometime since the summer, because one of the things we want to do is we want to make sure we follow all the procedures, so we're not in here with order conditions or having, we want to make sure we do things the right way.
Thank you.
And one of the things that we had spoken about was to get in front of this group in sort of an informal session to say, look, this is the situation. We have the existing structure. We can build on, from my understanding, we can build on the existing structure. I was having, and in that conversation, we actually had started to do that, and I was having a conversation with the engineer, and I said, I really want to move the place back a certain amount. I want to move it back 10 feet or so. I don't want to move it back 30 feet because I grew up at that location, and that's just sort of what I remember, and I just really don't want to move it back that far. And we had, as I said, started to think about designing a house on the original footprint. And as I was talking about it, he said, look, why don't you go in front of the commission and say, I know you don't want to move back, 30, 40 feet, but there'll be construction there anyway. Maybe if you go in front of them and say, you'd like to move back some because I really don't like it as close as it is, to be quite honest with you, that it's something that they would consider. So in speaking with Mr. Pichette, we're looking for sort of an informal session to get your guidance in terms of, how that looks, what's the possibilities. Because one thing I don't want to do is we don't want to do is spend a lot of money on architects and designs and everything else, and then come back and say, oh, you can't do it here, you have to revise everything and do it another way. On the other hand, I don't want to, do it another way and then found out I could have done it this way. So we're just looking for your guidance. I mean, I really, I understand conservation commissions. I think that they have a difficult job because people want to do things, and sometimes you have to be the group that says no, and I understand, that makes people upset. I think one of the things is to try to get ahead of it and say, this is what we want to do, and we want to get your guidance, number one. Number two, I can see, having been there for, 50 years, I can see that some of the things that Conservation Commission has done, and conservation in general has done, has improved that site. There are, yellow legs, there are a bunch of different bird species there that were never there before. So I understand that, but I just wanted to get in front of you to see, to get your, to see if moving it back 10 feet and it was enough of an improvement that it would be something you'd be willing to consider.
Any idea where the 30-foot line goes?
It's kind of through the back of the existing house or thereabouts.
So the back of the house is where, the back of the house is about the 30-foot.
Roughly it is.
Well-
This plan's at a funny scale, so it's hard to gauge it.
Yep, they're right there at the edge of the bank. We did visit the site.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I'd rather not build right on that site, because it is very close. I'd like to move it back some. On the other hand, moving it back to where the house is next door is significantly further back and changes the whole tenor of the place. So it's something I'd rather not do also. So I feel kind of caught in the middle here, and that's why I wanted to have a conversation with you.
Any comments, discussions, questions from the board?
I think what you heard Dave say is pretty much what you're gonna hear at the end. You're allowed to use the existing footprint.
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, bring it closer.
It could be me, I'm just, go ahead and talk all day. I think that, I don't know where the 30 foot is, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna be behind it if you don't stay on this footprint.
Okay. I'm not, when you say 30 foot, I'm not really sure what that means. 30 foot from,
From that line that's indicated as top of coastal bank.
okay. So currently the house is 22 feet back from the top of the coastal bank. If I was to move back 10 feet, it would be 32 feet back from the top of the coastal bank.
You mean, where are you saying there's two
The
lines?
seawall, the seawall is the top of the
Look-
coastal
look at
bank,
what's-
right?
Look at what,
No,
up-
there's
gets
one
to
that's
the
further
bulkhead.
back. There's one that's further back that's closer to the house.
Where, okay,
look where the bulkhead is.
okay.
So that second top of coastal bank line is where you're measuring your 30 feet back from.
Okay,
So that would be roughly the back of the existing house, but again, it's hard for me to tell exactly if that's 30 feet or if it's 28 feet or what, because this plan's at not a typical scale, so the
Right.
scale I have didn't measure up.
sure, no, I understand that, and again, that was sort of because this is before we,
It looks like the depth of your house is 13.3 feet. You were thinking you were,
no, I think the 13.3 is the actual elevation.
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
The house is actually, the existing structure is 26 by 24. And we would propose building a 28 by 32. I would like to make it, as we all get older, there may be a point where it'd be difficult to get up down the stairs, and we wanted to make it a little bit larger in case we had to convert a room into a bedroom so that we wouldn't have to go up and down stairs as we get older, so we wanted to expand the footprint to some extent. As I said, the reason I'm here is to find out if the improvement of moving it back some is preferable to the committee rather than building on the existing footprint, which is even closer to the coastal, is right on the coastal bank.
That's how it's written.
My understanding, we don't have to say this,
Yeah.
we build on the existing footprint. So we do
Exactly.
have one.
Right.
If we need that.
No, that's their option if they want to stay within the 30 feet.
That's
Right.
right.
But I didn't know, again, and this is part of the reason why I wanted to have an informal session. I mean, obviously, we know we need to do a notice of intent no matter what we do. We knew that. But we wanted to have a conversation because moving it back some is an improvement to the location, right?
Probably.
And I don't know what the flexibility is on the 30-foot zone. There isn't, okay, and I don't know that. And I just wanted to come in front of the board because one of the reasons why they have boards is so they can interpret some of the bylaws and regulations. Because again, you're gonna have construction anyway, right? And, okay, well, and that's what I'm asking, you know.
But the other thing is that, you know, as they're written, and people who have family cottages, which they're going to turn into homes, if you stay on your footprint, then you're pretty, you know, you have that ability. But as soon as you expand your footprint, then what happens is that all of the rules and regulations come into being, and you know, we can't really say to you, gee, you can increase your house and we won't see, because there's going to be building there. It's
And that's fine, and that's, again,
we're sort of at a very tough position.
Our reasoning for coming is to get this information so that we're not, you know, doing one thing one way and going down a road and then saying, because I think a lot of times people that do get upset, it's because they spend a lot of money and then they find out, oh my God, we can't do this way. And while I would prefer to do, you know, while we would prefer to do what we're asking, again, I fully understand and we fully understand the conservation's position. We just wanted to get an answer so that because as I said, I didn't want to start building on a footprint and then find out later on, oh my God, well, if you had gone in front, they may have given you a waiver or whatever it is that you guys do and say, okay, you can build there. One thing I will say is, and again, this is really a more of a less formal in terms of the structure picture than what it is, because if you actually, when I staked it out, because when you went to the site, there were stakes there, and if you notice, the stakes actually were right in front of the well, the actual, so the image here looks a little bit larger than it actually would be. I don't know why, I just, you know, again, it wasn't about, to me, it wasn't about the size of the structure, it was about whether or not we could do what we were proposing of if the improvement of moving it back 10 feet was something that the board would consider. If that's not the case, that's certainly understandable. You know, I'm not here to argue that, I just
Right.
wanted to know one way or another.
Yeah, yeah, we're pretty fixed on that, and I mean, that's how the law reads, and it's kind of what we have to follow. So if we make an exception for you, then every other.
No, I understand that, and as I said, though, that's the same
Building is-
time, that's why you have the
It's like-
board, because if the law was always followed just by the law, then you wouldn't really need the board per se, because you just say, oh, this is the law, and it's done. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak, you know, we appreciate the opportunity to come and speak. If that's the way, if that's the way the board feels, I understand.
I mean,
You know-
I'm willing to take a look at this project once I know where the 30-foot line is.
Okay?
Because without that, I can't make a
Okay.
recommendation.
And that's, I guess that's my fault. I assumed that when I saw top of coastal bank, as I see, now you point out there are two top of coastal banks, and I'm not sure which one is which, and, you know, we can find that out, and
Well, you
I
can,
guess the question is,
you can have more than one coastal bank on a property. So it's showing it correctly, but when you're making your setbacks, you always work from the one that's the furthest in. because that's.
Okay.
So whatever the resource area, whether it's a coastal bank or a marsh, or if you have multiple coastal resource areas, you're always measuring the 30-foot from the one that's furthest in.
Okay. Well, pardon my naivete, but can you explain a little bit about why would you have multiple coastal banks? I'm just curious. Again, it's
Because
something
it's
we're
based
interested in.
it's based on the slope of the property, and sometimes you can have properties that have multiple hills in the property, and if those multiple hills still fall below the flood zone line, then you could have more than one
Mhm.
coastal bank. That's why.
Okay. So what does that mean in terms of, should I just move forward on and go on the footprint, or are you?
Willing to take this particular plan and have someone draw on it the 30-foot setback from the upper coastal bank? So we need to see how much of that,
It's not gonna matter, we need an
Okay, I mean, yeah, sure, absolutely.
You gotta get an engineer.
not at,
Yeah, we'll tell
well,
them.
What's that?
wait a second. I would like to know where the 30-foot is, because maybe he can take a piece of his footprint, which is right up to the 30-foot, and then put the house behind the existing footprint to make more living space on one level. Did that,
Okay, you mean, in other words,
don't use the existing footprint, but how much of this footprint exists in the 30-foot no-work zone, and what can you do behind it, outside of the 30-foot zone, keeping your front property right there by the water? I
okay.
mean, so, but without knowing,
Yeah, no,
may use part of, but not all of your existing footprint
okay.
to do what you want, and then expand the house beyond
Okay.
that to make it a wider or
Okay.
whatever.
No,
But until I
thank you.
know the 30-foot,
No, absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate that, because I was under the impression it was sort of an all-or-nothing deal. You could build on the footprint, period, or I didn't realize you could actually,
my understanding, you could do partial, right?
No.
The footprint,
No,
I mean,
one-
Well, as long as the new chunk of building was outside the 30-foot.
okay, and that's why you want to know where the 30-foot
You could do
is.
that,
So you
because
could modify, so wait, a minute, would you like to come forward, identify yourself, and speak to the project?
I'm Michael Silva with MJS Architecture. The 30-foot is actually about where the neighbor's house is that you see on the plan. That's about 30 feet back, so
Or the house?
the house. So about where the back of the property is now, the house is now, is about the 30-foot mark.
So you could use a portion of your existing footprint, moving it back 10 feet, and then put the new house, the new dwelling expansion behind it, matching the neighbor's house. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah, I didn't think that was acceptable.
Well,
We either use the existing foundation that's there, and in that house, but we can't keep the same house, the house that's there, and add on to it, make it bigger. We become a non-conforming, adding on to the non-conforming. Yes, so the existing house that's there is all within the 30-foot,
Yes.
so,
Now, you don't have a cellar there, do you?
no.
Or just blocks?
It's
It's
blocks.
block.
Yeah, there's a front cellar.
Okay, so you have a crawl space under the
Sure,
house,
yeah.
not much more than that.
Yep,
Well, the front part of the house has a full foundation wall that goes down 6 feet,
Front being away from the water?
no, close to the water.
like a walkout.
You know, and one of the things that we would do, no matter
You
what,
have a bulkhead, duh.
right, yeah, yeah, I mean, one of the things we would be doing would be filling that in and making it compliant and putting the flood doors on it, and, you know, all the things that we would need to do to make it compliant. And again, that's one of the
Would you-
reasons why we wanted to come before you, because again, I didn't know what kind of flexibility there was in the 30-foot.
Yeah, if I
So-
may, part of what we were trying to do was pull the house as much into compliance as possible, the site plan. If you can see, we're bringing the house within our setbacks that are there, getting out of, encroaching on the side yard setbacks. We're pulling it back as much as we can, without going as far back as the neighbor. If you can see what that would create there is basically just a corridor going through. So we want to pull it back from the coastal feature. We want to keep some space in between the two houses, just so we don't have that basically canyon between the two of them, pulling it out of the side yard setback. So basically the underneath would be filled in, all leveled out with the flood vents and whatnot. And as I say, bring it up to compliance as much as possible. The only thing that we're not doing is getting it that 30 feet back. We are going back the 10, whereas if we were to use the existing foundation that's there, you know, just that whole scenario, that whole situation is a bank. I mean, you know, what damage that could create, so.
Is that
That's it.
Yeah, so
is that a deck?
I'm sorry?
Is that a deck on that?
Yeah,
10
off the-
feet that you're actually still utilizing the 10 feet, you're just utilizing it with a deck,
That's correct. There'd be an exact, yes.
which is still in the know.
It's lot coverage, right. It would be a matter of 3 piers as opposed to, you know, house structure.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, in a sense, our
So you really, I guess, maybe I'm wrong, but we see that as you haven't pulled it back.
Yeah, no, I understood. I mean, I totally get it, where the house is actually, the outline of the house structure itself could be a full foundation, you know, a frost wall with the flood vents and where that deck is. So I guess basically we're pulling that
Foundation back.
foundation back, yeah. So, and we're cleaning up the side yard, pulling it out of the side yard setback. And we just are trying to avoid that, you know, that tunnel between the two houses as much as possible.
Okay, comments?
I guess I just feel like, from what I understand, that once you add on to a foundation, of course, then you have to make all of the changes. My question would be, are you raising the house up?
Right now, it's at flood elevation, the
And-
floor and where we need to be, so we can leave it where it is.
If
Wait,
you
that's a-
stay on the same footprint, as soon as you leave that footprint, don't you have to then increase the height of the house for the flood?
It's
No?
already at that elevation. So the floor elevation is, the first floor elevation is above the flood. Is that, am I?
Yeah, I mean, because it's at 13'7", right? Flood
Yeah.
is 15,
Yeah.
so
Flood-
it only needs to be
yeah,
up a foot and a half.
You'd
little
have
bit
to
more.
raise it up. some.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, right. Not
Yeah.
up on piers or
Right, yeah.
anything like that, yeah.
Anything else? Mary?
One other quick thing, and that is that, you know, I think as Rob said, where are we going with this? You know, it is a difficult situation, and a lot of people have cottages that they would like to make into
Right.
homes and comfortable, and it's a hard one.
Yeah,
yeah, no, and
Law says what it says.
yeah.
And again, and that's why we're here at this point, to have this conversation, because again, we knew we needed to do a notice of intent no matter what we did. We just wanted to get, you know, your input and your guidance, because there would be some improvement to the site from various reasons, you know, the setbacks and some of the other things, and it would move back. And we just want to know, you know, is that something that the board would even consider, you know, would even consider?
Yeah.
And if that's not the case, then, you know, we have our answer,
Yeah,
and, you know, we appreciate the time. So that's, you know, that's the board's, you know, purview, not ours.
yeah, we were looking at it as, we were just basically improving the situation all around in terms of the construction and where it is, as opposed to using the existing of what's there. So, but,
Right.
yeah.
And from the board's point of view, you've actually added a significant number of square feet into the 30-foot no-touch zone.
Right, yep.
So that's
Yeah,
kind of
no, yep,
what
yeah,
we're looking at.
And that's, you know, I have
Yeah.
You know, no problem. I appreciate the, you know, the candor and the conversation, and, you know, if that's, I'm guessing what I'm hearing from the board, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but that basically the choice is we either build on the original footprint, or we have to move it back to
Yeah,
approximately
the
30,
neighbors.
35 feet back.
Yeah,
That's-
because the only thing we're increasing actually in that, outside of the existing structure, all the new house that's there is actually beyond the 30-foot mark. So there's the side piece on the side,
And the deck.
but the deck, yep, there's that
part
8
of
or
the
10
deck,
feet
yeah.
strip
Right.
that is increasing, that's correct, yeah. So,
I guess the question is, and I just sort of leave it at that, and maybe there isn't anything, is there any other improvements that we could do, that we can do? I mean, I don't want to say something that we can't do that would help the situation for us, or is it just, this is the rule? And again, I'm, you know, we're fine with that. We just wanted to know, you know, one way or another, so that, you know, this is, as I said, this has been in my family for, you know, 75 years. Even just talking about, you know, rebuilding it is, there's a whole,
So the
that goes
question I
along
have-
with that.
Can they use part of the existing footprint and expand the house beyond that?
Well, they can, but they're saying they don't want to do that. So they.
well, no, we're under the impression that we either had to use the existing footprint as is and not expand beyond it,
No,
or.
but you just said a moment ago that due to zoning reasons, you couldn't add on to the existing home because you'd be adding to a non-conforming
No,
structure.
I apologize. No, when I met with you once and with the building inspector, we either use the existing, what's there, with no add-on,
Right,
or we move the house back.
when you add on.
So that's
Yeah, so if you.
that's
if-
what she was
If
saying.
they were outside the 30 here and they just built something like that onto the back of this, that's potentially possible, depending on where the 30-foot line is.
That's- So what,
So we could
It's
use the
possible.
existing foundation, which the back, they're using the water as the front. So the back of the house, if that's at the 30-foot mark, we can add on into the 30 beyond.
I
No,
would,
going the other way, going outside.
yes,
What-
So,
away from the water.
Towards the
why don't you
street.
come up and
Going
take,
to the street, that's right, yes. So, okay, that was a whole different,
So
what we thought this past
What I think is
summer.
possible is a combination of using part of your existing footprint and expanding the house wider, further away from the water, keeping the front narrow for your existing footprint, and moving that back a portion as to what you want.
So we could use the existing house, the back of the house toward the
Portion of the
street is the.
existing house.
So
yeah.
that if you take your my gut feel, so if my gut feel is that if you were to take, this is, what, 10 feet back?
Yes.
So you were to take that and build this is your existing footprint, and then you would do this outside of the 30-foot.
They're saying basically, use this existing.
And that would,
But you would have
would
to
fit
double-check that with the building
right,
department.
that would fit our requirements, but maybe not someone else's.
Here's your existing footprint,
building inspector's call, they'd have to make that call.
okay? Use that, then put your new building back here, but then you eliminate this, you've pulled this back 10 feet, and you're still within the footprint narrow, widening in the back, but it all has to be clarified by the building inspector. I mean, that's,
And you have to, well, the building inspector is the one who makes the determination of
Whether or
whether
not it has
it's
to go to
okay
zoning.
or whether it has to go to the zoning board. So your 30-foot, this is your coastal bank that does this. So you have to figure out where 30-foot is.
so if 30
off
foot
of-
is, if 30 foot is there,
No.
No.
well, yeah, well, you'd have to come back here.
Oh, so you would be allowed to add that
Well, depending on where that line goes,
Well, my question is that if it doesn't overlap the house, it's the 30-foot back, say the 30-foot zone is a foot back from behind the house, that's my question, is that something? And again, I appreciate all the time, I
Yes,
appreciate you
yeah,
working
that's
with us,
terrific.
you know, we do, this is actually more than we, you know,
But, I mean, I don't like the idea of having pervious land anyway, but that's beside the point. But this is what I was thinking, but you have to ask the building, but the board would have to say whether or not we would allow you to build within a foot of the 30-foot.
Because we don't know specifically where that line is yet until you
We
mark
can't
it on
make
there.
that call.
So we need to find out exactly where that is,
Right,
and then we need to,
Go to the building.
because again, I don't wanna get into big plans and then find out, so if we found where that was,
Mm-hmm.
and then came back to here, and then we
Speak
talked
to
to the
Ms.
building.
Bichette, Ms.
Okay.
Bichette to see where that 30-foot lies within here.
Okay,
That's huge, yeah. We were under the impression this summer it's either this or back in here somewhere.
Well, you're still,
Or back within the 30.
if you're,
And that,
Yep.
that may be true, we just don't know, that's not our purview, you know.
yeah, and one of the reasons why we, and again, as Michael said, we don't wanna move it back 30 feet.
well, you're then up against to this house, and you've lost some of your,
Think in terms of, this is just layman's logic, so I'll say
Just-
this is layman's logic. I would think that from a fire point of view, being two houses that are right next to each other too, having offset the houses, and again,
Well,
I'm talking in terms of fire, and that's one of
That's what the setbacks
that's what
are for.
drives my thought.
so put your 30-foot on here.
Yeah.
Put some type of sketch with this alternative, see Mr. Bichette about where that 30-foot line is regarding this change, and then go to the building inspector and see what they think.
do you want to just continue the hearing? That way they can
Yeah,
come back with a
can-
revised plan?
Is that it all right to continue?
Yes.
I have a motion. I need a motion to
So
continue.
moved.
I have a motion
February
Second.
6th.
to February 6th is our next meeting. Is that all right with you? You'll have some time.
So when we get it in time, if not, we can just, if we can't get that information, then.
Oh, you got two weeks and only Martin Luther King's the only day off.
It's actually three,
No, I can run it.
3 weeks.
Says I thought that
Yeah.
it didn't.
3 weeks.
Then you have to vote the whole thing.
Okay, so you're continued until February 6th, and as I said, it's a possibility, but building
Open up that.
has to have to say.
I think you have to watch out, because I think
Wait a second, Alyssa?
when you open up and you use the part of the old footprint, that part of the footprint has to come into compliance as well.
We would do
So,
that anyway, anything that
you
we,
know?
anything that we do, whether we rebuild on the original
Yeah.
structure, whether we, even if we were to just renovate,
Uh-huh.
we would wanna make sure that it went into code, because
You would be forced to do that by the building.
We've continued the meeting,
Be
so
forced to
Thank
bring
you.
the code
no
by
more
the building.
discussion on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But as far as work is concerned, the 30-foot sort of,
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right, next one, please.
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., on Wednesday, January 16, 2019, at 7:15 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Jane and Lee Robinson, care of Lockwood Architects, P.O. Box 95, Onset, Massachusetts, 02558, to construct an addition and a shed located on Assessors Map 2, Lot 161, 2 Grove Street, Onset, Mass.
Thank you. Bill, please come forward and identify yourself.
Bill Lockwood, Lockwood Architects, representing the Robinsons.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette will speak to the project.
The project site is at 2 Grove Street in Onset, and the project involves the construction of an addition, a patio, and a shed within the buffer zone to a coastal bank and within a coastal flood zone. A 10 by 11-foot addition and a 10 by 12-foot shed are proposed within the buffer zone to a coastal bank, and the coastal bank is a seawall which is across North Water Street from where the subject property is. And this is also in coastal flood zone AE elevation 14. The new addition would have a poured concrete foundation. There's also proposed to be a new 4 by 4-foot wooden stoop with a 10 by 13-foot stone patio adjacent to the proposed addition. This is a relatively flat site. There's no grade changes proposed. And again, you do have a street separating this lot from the coastal bank on the other side. So I would recommend the approval of the project with a negative determination number 2.
Bill, anything to add?
Nope, all sounds good to me.
Questions from the board?
None here.
Anybody would like to speak to or for this project? I'm seeing none. I need a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained?
Thank you.
Wait a minute. I need to, what do you want to do with the project?
What do I want? I'm sorry.
I need the board to tell, to
Oh, I'm
to
sorry.
vote on it. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the project with a -2? I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Before you start, see Dave. Before you start. Okey dokey.
We'll give him a call. Thank you so much.
That does it. Okay, we have, someone here to speak on the Onset Bathhouse. Is that what you want to talk about now?
Yeah, the Valley Group.
Yes, anybody here for that? I did visit that site today.
I was there as well.
Then I missed you.
I think you have these plans.
So Mr. Bichette will speak to the project. Yeah.
Well, never mind. You don't like it.
So we've had the builder from Valley Group that's working on the Onset Bathhouse request a discussion before the commission to talk about some plan changes. A couple of the plan changes were changes that I stated were changes that would need an amended order of conditions. Then there was another more minor activity that they would like to discuss, which I didn't necessarily feel needed to be part of an amended order, which was a temporary placement of a propane tank to run a heater to heat the inside of the building when they're doing the concrete work inside there. So that's only meant to be a temporary feature, so part of the construction activities. The other part of the project is they want to change the location of the water line from where we approved it to this other part of Onset Bluffs. And there's a couple other minor things as well that weren't part of the original approval. So as far as I'm concerned, those features should have an amended order of conditions through a formal hearing, but the commission can entertain the idea of putting the propane tank in just as a procedure of construction. Brian can continue on with his comments.
That's not it, is it?
Yes, something to add? Would you like to add to it?
Sure. Yeah, the important thing that they're looking for immediately is the propane tank to provide heat into the structure. It's a temporary feature, as Dave mentioned. They'll build a slab off-site and deliver it to the site, and they'll level grade a small area, 6 by 12 or something, install the pad and bring the tank in. So that's something they're looking for in need fairly quickly, and Dave, I guess, is okay with that, which is great. The other things, as outlined in red on this plan, this is a plan that the contractor sent to us with his thoughts. And I disagree with Dave, I guess. I think those, or majority of these changes are covered under the original plan. You know, original plan shows a water service. We're showing a relocation of the water service. The original water service, as proposed on the plan, may be 450 feet long. The location is shown, the revised location, and the new location is maybe 150 feet. So we think there's less of an impact to the resource areas. And again, the electric service location is indicated on this plan. On the approved plan, there's a note indicating electric service location to be confirmed with conversations with the utility company and things like that. So it's covered under the original approval in the original plan. With this kind of just cements the location on a plan for you to have. And all these features are on the away side of the beach, on the opposite side of the building, providing necessary utilities for the reconstruction. The other feature that's shown on this, which I guess is new, is a stockpile area on the pier for stockpiled materials. Now, that's a convenient location for them. Obviously, there would be concerns. Again, that's to be temporary. He's through mid-April is his plan, because then it really kind of gets opened up. We're into the season, and it would need to be cleaned up by then. So, you know, if that's an approvable location, we would call for it to be ringed with erosion control, put silt sacks in the catch basins that are adjacent to it, and control it that way. If you have concerns, then we'll find another location for it, in which really the only other place is up in the park, an upland location in the park adjacent to the upper work area. And I guess the final thing is just that temporary construction access. Obviously, access is necessary to complete the work. This is the location that was chosen because it's pretty flat and level, easy access for machinery. No trees need to be cut down or branches don't need to be limbed to provide access for the excavator, for the crane, for the other equipment to get to the top of the bluff there to do the necessary work that they need to do. So, you know, I think the order of conditions that's in place is protective enough. If we were to come back to you with an amended plan, we wouldn't expand any of the erosion control measures that are shown on the original plan. They're adequate with this relocated work. The erosion control measures that were originally proposed are adequate to protect the beach and in the bay, in the resource areas. So this kind of cements some of the locations that were unknown at the time of the original plan, the electric line. It's a relocation of the water service, which is decreasing the length significantly. So it's kind of an improvement there. And just, again, the construction access, which is a necessary component of the project. So, you know, we're just here having that discussion and get some feedback. But I think the order of conditions that are in place are protective of these additions, revisions, modifications.
Questions? Yes, please.
So I will go back to what I said originally. While I hear what Brian's saying, this is different work that's in the buffer zone to the coastal bank than what we approved originally. And as everyone knows, this project did have a lot of scrutiny, and I do believe we need to have an official amended order of conditions to make this revised plan formal. If not, you're going to have work going on in areas that were not initially approved, and people are going to question why is that going on, since they weren't made aware of it, and it could just result in more headaches for us.
Yep.
So I would prefer that the commission allow the temporary propane tank and require all the other changes to be handled through an amended order, and that'll just eliminate any headaches. That's my 2 cents on that.
Comments?
Clarification. It just says, you know, proposed temporary 500-gallon propane tank, anchored to la-di-da, concrete pad removed by 4/15. The pad, too, is being removed. It's not just the
Yes,
tank
right.
anymore. Okay, that's
Right.
all.
It'll be
Yeah.
removed, the area restored as any other
That's how I
disturbance.
read it, but
Yeah.
I could have been kind of ready.
Yeah, right,
That's all.
right, good point,
That's
right.
on a slope. Is there a better place to put it that's even?
There's enough room on that slope to get it in there. There'll be some grading necessary to level off a pad area, but they're gonna have to flatten that out. They're gonna have to carve that out.
As opposed to going down to the concrete pad to the side of the building, next to the rinse station.
Well, it can be done there. There will be a little bit of earthwork done, not a significant amount,
Okay,
to level
But
the
it
pad.
is, there is a slope.
Yeah, there is a slope, but to get the pad in there, it's not significant amount of work to be done, just to level an area, you know, the size of this table, to get that pad in there, and then put the tank on it. And that makes it, with the access road in the location that is shown, the propane truck can come down that access road, fill the tank, and the blower or the heater unit will be at the top of the wall, located just down from there, and there'll be vent ductwork going into the building from there, from the heater.
Spoke to someone today from OBA who mentioned that the Buzzards Bay Coalition was going to put in a water resource for them to work on the plantings that they do along the bluff. Any idea where that might be? I don't know if I've seen it on here. It was just a conversation with an OBA member and with Buzzards Bay Coalition. Can you have a chance to confirm that, whether or not they're
I can ask
expecting to put
about that.
well, whatever they call it, a pump station or something for water
A lawn
access?
hydrant or something, is that what you're
Something
talking?
to do, something for accessing water so they can easily water the plants that they maintain in the area.
Yeah, it sounds like a lawn hydrant, you know, the little pull
Yeah.
up the lever.
And the water comes out and you shut it off and
Right.
you put a lock on it so someone doesn't accidentally use it during the summer and let it run for hours and that type of thing. But the garden club has it throughout the town, and OBA was looking forward at this site, and I just wanted to make sure it was
I can
actually
ask about
could
that.
happen and on the
Yep.
plan. Any questions?
Yeah.
So, yes, please.
I have a concern with size of the construction equipment, deliveries, you use trailer trucks, or whatever. You gotta go all the way around Shell Point and down that narrow road. Anybody thought about that?
Because it's a one-way.
One way, you gotta go all the way around Shell Point. And I'm sorry, you're not gonna bring all that construction equipment or the materials in on a
Right.
truck.
To use
Right.
South Boulevard, is that what you're talking about? The
Yes.
traffic on South Boulevard?
Yeah, unless we were to get a police detail temporarily stop traffic for the minute or two, it would take the vehicle to access from South Boulevard. But I can inquire.
I'm just concerned with the size of the road, being a trailer truck driver myself. That's kind of tight.
No, that's a good point. And if they're coming up this way, you know, they'd have to widen out. Not that they're changing the sidewalk at all, they would just put some boards in front of the curbing and then turn into the access. But, yeah, let me find out what his, his traffic plan is.
Yeah, that's just,
Yep.
that's just information.
Beyond our scope, but a very good question.
No, it isn't beyond our scope.
What, the use of the roads?
Well,
But it's a good question. Well asked. The question is whether or not we would like to have a formal order, a change to the order conditions.
Yes.
I'm hearing a yes,
Yes.
a formal change to the order of conditions.
Now, so just to the items shown on this plan, is there any concern relative to the items shown on this plan that we would
A
need to
permanent-
change?
The permanent ones is the change in the water line, right? That's the permanent one.
Correct.
And electric, underground electric.
For the the proposed new underground electric and data services coming in off of South Boulevard.
Yes, confirming the electric location, the new location of the water service,
Yep.
the stockpile area, relocating the rinse station and the temporary propane tank. You know, I think that's it.
Well, I think the propane tank and rinse station can happen as soon as possible, but the others really do require a hearing.
Right, but my question is, are you okay with what's shown on here, or do you have any input from me?
Yes,
to-
I'm seeing
Okay.
yeses
Okay,
Without a vote, I'm seeing nods.
Yes.
okay.
Anything else, Mr. Fischett?
Nothing else?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want any of these back, or you're gonna file?
Yeah, if you don't need them, I'll take them back. Would this be a suitable plan to submit, or would you wanna?
Unless you have other changes to make to it, because there was a question about this other piece. But if no other changes are proposed other than what you're showing, then I don't see why you can't submit that.
Yeah, I'll check on the traffic, because that's a good question, because if he needs to modify the location of construction road based on the traffic, then we'll change it on the plan.
Yep.
Okay, great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Next. We have an extension request, Carl Schultz, 15 Roby Street.
This is an order that we issued for a project to add an addition to an existing home on 15 Roby Street in Swifts Beach area. The owners have had some issues with getting the building architecture straight, so they had a delay in their project, so they're requesting a one-year extension for the order, so I'd recommend that.
I have a recommendation
So
to
moved.
extend it for 1 year.
So
I
moved.
have a motion, I need a,
Second.
I have a second. All in favor of a 1-year extension?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next.
These next two for Hill Financial are for projects on Minot Ave, which I'm sure if you've driven by there, you've seen some activity going on there in terms of tree clearing. So these orders are due to run out fairly soon, and so they're requesting an extension to those. The only issue I have with these is they kind of started doing the work without checking with me and going over the erosion control, which I don't even think is still in place yet. So I want to make sure these things get straight before we issue extensions on these.
When does it expire?
I believe they expire in February.
We just make them come back in and reapply.
How about it, should they, since they started without anything, should they be fined?
They've been
Company?
approved. The project has been approved. What they did is they started without
Right, they didn't,
confirmation of the hay bale.
they didn't follow the order, so in my opinion, I think they should get a fine. That's,
Yeah, they did it wrong.
yeah. But their order is due to expire February 4th,
Yeah, so they're gonna have to refile. If-
unless we grant them a one-year extension now, which we could do, because it's in front of us. The commission could issue an extension with a fine for each one of them, and that way they could continue on, but just make sure everything's in place before any other work gets done, plus they get whatever fine the commission asked for. But we did approve these projects, and
Is it 4 lots, David, or 2?
3?
there's 3 lots, but 2 of them have orders of conditions, which are the ones that are on this,
So you're
Yes.
trying to renew 2?
yes.
All right, fine them.
$300 for starting the work
Yeah.
without,
Per lot.
per lot, with
Yep,
a 1-year extension.
Yep.
Per lot.
I'm good with that.
You all right with that? You think that's too steep?
I thought it was a little steep. I wasn't gonna go quite that high, but
Well, I don't think it is, only because we're talking with a contractor here. This isn't, Johnny homeowner who doesn't know what's what.
yeah,
So-
that's fine. I'm good with it. You want me to make the motion? I'll make the
Yes,
motion.
please.
I'll make the motion that we issue a fine of $300 per lot and 1-year extension per lot.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Now, the third lot, they've cleared it already, correct?
They cleared what is needed to be cleared, but one of those lots did not need an order of conditions from us.
Okay, so we can't.
Yeah, it's not
It was
good
one of
for
those
me.
things that, oh, yeah, those are three duplexes, right?
That's right.
3 duplexes going. Because the other side of the snow building will soon be cleared for the new building, for the commercial building.
Correct. But that's not within our.
No, but it's just one more tree down on Minot Ave,
Yeah.
that's all.
Now, is this where all that work is being done now?
Yes, opposite Brandy Hill?
Yeah.
Brandy Hill, is that it? Yeah, the apartment house, apartment complex.
I thought those were down closer to the fire station.
No.
Maybe,
They
maybe.
were higher up the hill because they away from the wetlands.
Wait from, okay. I don't know why I thought, because I remember when those were issued.
Yeah,
I
we
think, I
talked
think
about
there is one closer to where you're talking about, but they haven't come forward with that one yet.
And part of it
Yeah,
is,
because it's like
was there a curb cut issue?
4 or 5
Trying to
of
think
them
of planning, anyway. Okay, next,
Okay.
we have enforcement orders, 3 of them. Do you want to hold it?
Yeah, these were just on there in case anything came up, which there really isn't anything to discuss on these at the moment. So I don't really have anything further on the agenda tonight, unless anybody else does.
I'm looking at this enforcement orders. I would like to have Mr. Bichette go back to previous enforcement orders, maybe 3 years' worth, and see whether or not any of it has not been done as requested. Is that a good way to put it?
Yes.
Can we find out what's happened with ones we've done in the past, whether or not they've complied as requested? I think 3 years, because we have weeks without anything on an enforcement order, so it's not as if there's a whole lot of them.
Right.
Is that all right with the board?
Sure.
Do some research and tell us whether or not someone has not done what's requested.
Sure.
And the last thing is, I went down to Swiss Beach and took a look at that illegally placed walkway, bridge. They put on more boards because the ones there were sagging in the middle. And one of the pylons seems to be eroding away, and what would you like to do with it? I don't know who put it up, it wasn't permitted, and do we continue to leave it there?
Have them rip it out.
Who's they, maintenance?
Would have to be, because it's on the town property, so.
Anybody want to see a picture of it?
I would love to.
So what you have is the first picture in May when it was brought out to attention, and the second picture was as of today. And there's no railings, there's no step up to it. They're just, I don't know who did it, it just appeared sometime and someone
There's
sent a
been-
note.
There's been issues there ongoing for
Yeah.
quite a few years.
I don't think we need a vote to have it removed, it's just illegally placed and whatever. I think, like, ask Mr. Pichette to address some municipal maintenance to remove it. You wanna see a picture? I'll pass it down.
Can a sign be put in? Do not replace?
Well, I'm hoping that with Mr. Sullivan looking at a complete engineering plan for the site, that one of the solutions is how to get across this ditch.
Right.
And with a properly built, safe bridge. So I know that's a work in progress, so. Anything else?
Nope.
I think it's 8:15. Can I hear?
Motion to
I have
adjourn.
a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Oh, let me pass these extensions around before
Third it as well, if I could.
I forget.
Last